I've been thinking about making a video on this topic for quite some time. I put out a video 7 months ago where I tried to tackle the topic, is Albion Online dying? And I got a lot of mixed feedback. I had more than a couple people that were angry I was even asking the question, but despite that, I was very happy to see the discourse that my video generated, and I hope to handle this topic in a similar way. I was getting reminded of this topic when a Reddit post popped up with a video claiming Albion is the worst monetization ever. I'm not going to link the video because I don't think it's deserving of being shared, but to give you a synopsis, the creator asserted that Albion is pay to win because with real money you can buy gold, which you can transfer to silver, and then you can buy all of the weapons and buy all of the mounts. Is that how you win at Albion? That's probably where we should start. How do you win at Albion? There is no start of Albion and there is no end, unless you get banned, of course. And for the most part, all of what can be considered endgame content is accessible right from the very start of the game. So with Albion being so open-ended, you're left to set your own win condition. Some players give themselves a goal for the day, the season, the year, or even just an overarching goal that they want to accomplish in their time in Albion. You could decide to essentially keep moving your goalposts further and further along as you accomplish them, or some players may even choose to move on from Albion after they accomplish their win condition that they set for themselves. It's also worth mentioning that a lot of players don't have a goal. They don't have a win condition at all. They simply log in and have fun playing the game. Crazy, right? When I was talking about that video earlier, I mentioned a couple of the win conditions that I thought were silly. I believe that anyone who's been playing Albion for more than a week would think something like owning all of the mounts is a pretty trivial goal, especially since there isn't even a B mount yet. So why don't I go through some of the win conditions that I can think of and give a breakdown of how much paying can affect your ability to succeed at that goal. Being rank 1 PvP. When I started playing the game, the top PvP Fame players were all gankers. Then, with the induction of corrupted dungeons, eventually all the top PvP Fame players were from there. And finally, when they introduced solo myths, that became the source of the most PvP Fame. I'll discuss this topic a bit more in detail later, but in order to get the most PvP Fame, you have to kill very high IP players, and there just simply isn't any way to pay for that. Even if you get the most expensive gear, the highest spec, the really high IP players that know what they're doing are still going to kill you almost every time. Being top infamy in the corrupted dungeons or any of the Hellgate categories. All of these forms of content have a soft IP cap. What this means is that the value of having better gear or spec than your opponent has a lot less effect than it would in the open world. If you decide to overgear and take a very expensive set into corrupted dungeons or Hellgates, you will eventually run into a very skilled player or team that, despite the small advantage you have over them, they'll walk all over you and take your gear. It's not possible to pay to win top infamy in any of the categories, though any of us that play this content would highly encourage you to try. Top Crystal Arena RP. Nope, definitely not. In order to get the top Crystal Arena RP, you have to be a decently skilled Crystal player and then just grind as many games as you possibly can. Some of the past season winners would grind them for 12 plus hours a day just to ensure that they got the top and stayed there. Crystal Arenas are soft capped at 900 IP. So you do get an IP advantage of around 100 or so if your opponent is in 4-1 gear with low spec, but anyone that is actively grinding Crystal Arenas will be in 8-3 or 8-4 gear anyways. Season 21 here was the top rank I got in Crystal Arenas personally, and the 3 people above me were the people I played with most of the time. Must not have been much other content going on for me that season. Top PVE Fame. From what I understand, the players that reach ridiculously high PvE Fame are groups that endlessly grind world bosses. In the top Fame from last week and this week, it has just been 2 guilds that seem to monopolize them. In theory, you could attempt to pay one of these guilds to let you join them for their world boss runs and hope that they accept you, but that is quite a stretch, so I'm going to say no, this is not a pay-to-win category. Top Gather Fame. I wasn't entirely sure about this one, so I decided to reach out to some of the people that have top Gathering Fame in the past week. A lot of them were too busy gathering to answer questions, but I'll share what I gathered from the one who did answer. The only way to pay to win top Gathering Fame would be to pay someone to log into your account and gather 24/7 while you sleep. Obviously, account sharing is against TOS, so this isn't a great solution. Using my imagination, you could always try to pay guilds to let you gather 7-4, 8-4 nodes, give you locations of titans and world bosses, but I think it is unlikely to get top Gathering Fame by paying. Lead a guild to rank 1 and win a season. Now this is a category that is a little controversial because if you've been playing Albion for a long time, you have likely heard stories about one guild or another paying for another guild to help them win a territory, push out another guild, hand off objectives, etc. Have guild leaders ever swiped their credit card to help progress their guild? Absolutely. But there is so much work that needs to be done in order to get a guild in position to even compete to win a season that I really don't believe simply paying is enough for it to be done. In the past, guilds were able to hire mercenary crystal teams who would compete in the highest level of crystals, and in doing so earn the guild season points. But about a year ago, season points were removed from crystals entirely, which gives even less of an opportunity for guilds to pay their way to the top. Win a Crystal League championship. Since I mentioned crystals, allow me to lament for a moment. What I always considered one of the top goals in Albion was competing in the Crystal League and winning enough that you could qualify for the end of season Crystal League tournament, and then going on to win that. There is absolutely no way to pay to increase your chance to win a CLC tournament. It is simply a contest of skill. You will notice that I'm speaking in the past tense because SVI did decide to remove the Crystal League tournament a year ago at the same time that they removed season points from crystals. But the players who did win before that have an extra feather in their cap that others don't. King of the solo miss. Now this is probably the one that gets brought up the most, so I'm going to try to explain my thoughts on it and talk about the experience that I have had. The myths are very accessible. For this reason, a lot of newer players will take out their shiny 4.1 set in hopes of killing some monsters, opening some chests, and before long, they get absolutely slaughtered by an 8-3 or 8-4 player. These 4-1 players have absolutely no chance to win against this highly skilled 8-3 player, so a lot of them end up labeling that as a pay-to-win aspect of the game. I'm not going to get into why these 8-3 players kill these 4-1 players, but if you'd like me to make a video on that topic, just let me know. Now obviously, if you're an 8-3, the gear set is pretty expensive. Especially if you start adding in the awakened weapons with high traits, you probably want to have high spec to go along with your gear. So all of this ends up adding up to a lot of silver. You would probably quickly assume that with this expensive gear and this high IP, it gives you a big advantage. The problem is, on top of the low IP players in the mist, you've probably noticed that there are other 8-3, 8-4 players in the mist as well. And most of these players happen to be pretty darn good at the game. So if you're someone that bought gold in order to afford your set, and your spec, and you run into someone with equal gear that has years of experience PvPing in Albion, well, you just donated your pretty gear to them. Any veteran player in Albion has stories about times that they've ran into swipers and gone big payouts from them. It's usually pretty easy to tell because they'll have a silly build, wrong skills on, wrong food, or maybe they'll just make it really clear they don't necessarily know how to play their set. With that said, some of the most successful mist builds are also highly mobile. So in theory, you could take your expensive 8-3 Bloodletter or Double Bladed set and only kill lower tier players and run away from anyone closer to your IP. This could work for a while, but eventually one of those skilled players, or even just a team of 6 rats, will catch up to you and you'll lose that set that you bought. I think it's unlikely you'll ever make back the amount of silver that you spent on your set, so you're basically swiping your credit card again to buy another temporary set. So this all sounds like pay to lose to me. I don't necessarily think you're paying to win, because in the long run, you're basically just buying an expensive set and then giving it away to other players. Max out your entire Destiny board. This could mean combat, this could mean non-combat, this could actually mean both. This one could actually completely be pay to win if you choose. Get spec in your gear by equipping it, and then you can simply eat tomes to increase the spec that you have. Tomes of Insight can be bought with silver, and silver can be traded for with gold, so it's pretty easy to make an argument that this goal would be pay to win. I had a friend of mine do the math, and it would basically take 657,000 tomes of Insight with auto respec on to get 120 spec in all the combat gear. At the current price on the NA server, it would cost you a total of 20.6 billion at the current tome price to get to that point. Doing some math, if you were to simply swipe your credit card to buy gold, turn that gold into silver, you use that silver to buy tomes of Insight, and then try to spec all your gear up to 120 spec, it would actually end up costing you about $15,000 right now. To me, that seems like a really high price just to get spec that you could actually earn just from killing monsters, but I think it's arguable that at least this specific section is technically pay to win. Economic goals. There are a lot of economic accomplishments that you could set as a goal. If you want to have 100 million silver, you could literally just buy gold and trade it for silver. Similarly, if you wanted to transport Mammoth, you could do the same and then just buy one from the market with silver. It gets a little bit more complicated if your goal is to, say, own a city plot or maybe a whole city, but in theory, if you had a very strong credit card, it could be done. I don't particularly understand why someone would feel the need to do this, but it'd be hard to argue that you couldn't pay to win most economic goals in Albion. And that's it. Those are the win conditions that I could come up with. As I said, Albion allows you to play however you want and set whatever goals you want, so exactly how much paying could affect your goal will vary. For example, if you set a goal of obtaining 10 billion rough logs, you could probably do it through paying. But if you give yourself the goal of killing members of the guild you hate the most 10,000 times, it'll end up being a lot harder to do this while paying. A term that would make a lot more sense for Albion would be something more like pay to progress. What this means is that if you want to get spec in a gear set but you don't want to kill monsters to do it, you can just use Homes of Insight and then immediately take that gear into whatever content you want to do. If you want to start gathering tier 8 of a resource, you could buy gathering tomes all the way up to tier 8 and unlock it right away. At the end of the day, if you're setting a goal for yourself that could be accomplished from spending money and then proceeding to spend money to do it, why bother? So in conclusion, if you think Albion is pay to win, then I personally think you need to start setting better goals for yourself.